The FSDC was established in 2013 by the government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region as a cross-sectoral advisory body to promote the development of local financial services industry. One of FSDC's core objectives is to support the financial services industry in Hong Kong to nurture a pool of local talents. Collaboration with tertiary institutions to organize practitioner speaker series talks is an important initiative to achieve this goal. Today, we are honored to have Ms. Elisa Law to talk about new career opportunities in virtual banking with us here today. May I now pass the time to Ms. Law to conduct the sharing session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eliza. I'm the Chief People Officer of Mox Bank Limited. I'm showing my face without my mask on right now because, it's only me in the room, so I guess it's okay. And I also want to, speak louder so that you can all hear me. So today I'm going to talk briefly about what is virtual bank to start with, because it's a relatively new industry in Hong Kong. And then I will also talk a little bit about, the career landscape within virtual banking, and hopefully can give you some insights around, how you should be getting ready in case you're interested to join the industry someday. So I'm going to swap to the PowerPoint presentation right now. I know I have around 20 minutes for this, and then after that, it will be a Q&A section. But if any one of you has questions during the presentation, please feel free to type your questions on the meeting chat. There is a chat box on the right of the screen right now, so I think you know how to use it. Feel free to drop questions so that I can answer it after the presentation part. Okay, so without further ado, I will just show my slide right now. Okay, great. So everyone is able to look. Can you see the screen? Okay. So, so I think virtual bank has been quite a hot topic these days, and I'm not sure if you have already signed yourself to some of the virtual banks, but I think to start with, I just wanted to, to briefly talk about what is virtual bank.
Ms. Law, could you please unmute?
I did, but then someone muted me. So I don't know what's happening, but can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so let me start over again. So I think to start with, I just wanted to give a bit of background around virtual bank development in Hong Kong and also the evolvement of banking. So what is virtual bank? I'm not sure if any one of you have already signed up to some of the virtual banks in town, but then a simple definition of virtual bank is that it delivers retail banking services through the internet or other forms of electronic channels instead of physical branches. So I think it would help just to talk a bit about the evolvement of retail banking in Hong Kong. So I think back in, 20, 30 years ago, banking was pretty simple. So they basically focus on offering very simple products like deposits, loans, and credit card. And then I think in the last 15, 20 years, it evolves quite a bit, where investment product and insurance product is one of the focus of a lot of the retail bank in Hong Kong. I think there are two reasons to that. One is that people's financial need has changed. So instead of just relying on loans and deposit products, they do see the need of investment and insurance. Therefore, I think a lot of banks has added all these services to their retail banking. But then in the past 15 years or so, there has been more and more control and governance around the buying and selling of investment and insurance products. You guys might be too young to know the history, but let me give you a little bit of background. So there was a couple of cases back in around 2007, 2008, where you might have heard of the Lehman Brothers incident, that some of the customer has bought investment products without knowing all the details of the investment products. So since then, the regulator has added a lot of control to the selling process, which is a sensible thing to do, because I think at the end of the day, customer will need to know what they have invested in, and they have to, they got to have enough information to make a decision. So, but then when more control is implemented in the selling process, you can imagine that it becomes less efficient and banking becomes a bit more complicated per se. So today, when you go to a branch, if you want if you want to invest in certain products or get an insurance for yourself, you might need to fill quite a number of forms before you get into, buying the product that you want. And that's a risk management measure implemented by the bank and the regulator. But then at the same time, this is also something that has been, that is in place to protect the customers. So, but then now, we got to question ourselves. Let's go back to the basics. What exactly is the need of our customers? Do we want a complex process, or could things be doing, can we do things online, in a more self-directed approach, so as to minimize the pain points in the process? So I think that's how, the whole virtual bank concept came up. Virtual bank is not a new thing in Europe and the US. Actually, it's quite established. And we do see that, the emerge of virtual banks has helped customer in different ways. So I think eventually we still want customer to bank with us, but then at the same time, they should bank with us with a better experience. So this is how virtual bank has emerged in Hong Kong. And let me go to the next slide. Last year in March time, the regulator, the government has issued 8 virtual banking licenses. And Mox is one of the first to have got the license. And since then, we have been, we have worked really hard to build the virtual bank to get ourselves ready. And if you look at the market, you can see that a lot of the virtual banks, they are actually formed by different parties. So, the players are not just pure banks. There is a lot of setup, which is a joint venture with non-banking partners. So, just to give an example of ourselves, we are actually a joint venture among 3 partners, Standard Chartered being the banking partner, HKT being the telco, and Trip.com being the, the online travel partner. So, the concept behind this is that we feel that banking in the future is not going to be just banking. It's going to be about the whole lifestyle. So that's why we partner with 2 non-banking partners, and that, so do other virtual banks. So some of the virtual banks in town, they are money lender as a background, but they partner with other lifestyle partners as well. So from this, you can see that it is a trend that banking in the future is not going to be just banking. It's going to be an ecosystem with a lot of non-banking partners. So then, that naturally goes into the next topic that I'm going to talk about is, what are the opportunities out there in virtual banking industry? So because this is relatively new, there is no benchmark in Hong Kong per se. So basically, we don't exactly have, like a role model in town. So everyone is trying hard to be the role model, to be the industry leader. But then in terms of the career opportunities, I can say, as compared to the traditional bank, there are functions that is quite unique in virtual bank, but not in traditional banking. For example, technology people is in high demand. So you can imagine that, we would need a lot of technology people to help building the bank and, continuously to improve the banking platform. Another area that is in great demand is cybersecurity. So at the end of the day, because we want ourselves to be a safe bank, so while we want a seamless customer experience, it has to be safe. So therefore, cybersecurity, technology risk management is quite a unique space, which has been emerging in traditional banking as well, but is even in higher demand in virtual banks. So, but on the flip side, there are roles that is, available in traditional banking industry, but is no longer available or valid in virtual banks. For example, the relationship manager at branches, the operations people, we still have operation department, but you could imagine when things are being so digital, we probably don't need that much of the people to do things manually. And also, the customer service people, when we talk about customer service in traditional banking, we probably talk about, those people sitting at the front line, serving people face to face. But then for virtual bank, we are talking about like a contact center where people would connect with the customer digitally and online. So I could say there are roles that applies to both virtual bank and traditional bank, but then, the focus would be a bit different. The emphasis would be a bit different. For example, marketing, risk management, or even HR, like myself. We do have this function in traditional banking and virtual banks, but then the know-how, the mindset would be different. For example, on marketing, we focus a lot more on online marketing and digital marketing versus traditional bank. And say for myself, even human resources function, it would be more about how to leverage on latest technology to help our employee than, doing things in the old way. So, from there, if you're interested in joining a virtual bank, there are a few advice that I would like to give to everyone. One is, regardless of your background, you've got to be ready for this new trend. So it doesn't really matter what you study now, but it is important that you keep yourself updated to what's going on out there. In particular, in the virtual banking space, not only in Hong Kong, but also overseas. So my advice is that the only way to get to know more is to read more and go online more and do some research yourselves. And this is how our staff has been learning themselves as well. So I think another advice is around, setting your own goal. So depending on whether you want yourself to be in a specialist role or in a generous role, give yourself, set a goal for yourself. If you wanted to be a specialist in certain areas, then you really need to dive into that area and be an expertise in that area. For example, if you want to be a risk management expertise, or you want it to be like a finance expertise, then yes, of course, from a competency fit perspective, you need to know the stuff. But then at the same time, apart from the core skill set of these functions, again, you need to catch up in the market how to perform these functions in a digital way. Understand the technology out there, how to equip your role to be more effective. I would also like to talk a bit about, the different way of working in virtual banks. So, this is something that is quite different as compared to bigger banks or more traditional organization. So first of all, usually virtual banks or startup like us is a very lean structure. So today we got about 170 people as compared to some traditional bank who got like 5,000, 6,000, or even over 10,000 people. So you can imagine that your daily work would involve not just only your responsibility, but also something that is outside of your responsibility, because we work in teams together, we set goals in team, so we call it squad here. So so the concept around building things together in a virtual bank is that we get people from different functions to be in squads. So I think in your language, it's more like project teams. So instead of having like departments focusing on just their own things, we got people from different functions and departments to sit together and define a goal together, to build something together and contribute from their respective functions. I'll give you an example so you can understand it more, you can have a clearer picture of what I'm talking about. So for example, if we were to build a deposit product, it's not just the product people who is doing the work. We actually created a deposit squad with people coming from risk management, from compliance, or even from finance, and of course product people, and also the technology people. So this group of people, they sit together and they define their objectives together. So I think the good thing about this structure is that you got a strong ownership of what everyone has agreed to deliver. And at the same time, you feel more engaged to what you are doing, because in a project team like that, and when every day you talk to each other on the same subject, the engagement level, the ownership, and in terms of getting things going is a much more effective way. So this is quite a different way of doing things as compared to bigger organizations where things are quite well defined. The role and responsibility are more well defined in a way. So people will focus on basically their area. But then in a lean organization, in a smaller organization, startup like us, it's going to be different. So let me talk about what's important when we hire people in virtual bank. Of course, your the technical know-how is important. Like I said, if I'm hiring like a technology engineer, of course you need to how to do the coding. If I'm asking, I'm hiring someone to fill a compliance position, this person, will need to know about, regulations and compliance. But then from my perspective, what's more important is the cultural fit. In our company, when we assess people, the final round of interview is always a panel interview. And by panel, I mean I ask people from different teams to talk to this candidate. The reason why I'm doing it is because, like I said, we work in squads, in project teams, and it's important that we hire people who share the same set of values, who has very similar way of doing things, who share the same passion to build something together. So without the cultural fit, it would be a struggle for the new joiner, and it would also be a struggle to the existing people here. So it's not uncommon. So therefore, I think this is very important for us during the hiring process. And it's not uncommon that we actually rejected people, or, you know, on a fair basis, they could also say no to us because they don't find a culture fit. I think at the end of the day, we wanted to find people who feel that they could grow with us together and they enjoy working here. So, so there are a few things that we will be looking at. One is the passion. You know, without passion, you can't really work in a startup. I mean, honestly, when I talk to people, if they're looking for a stable job, going into the office at 9 and leave at 6 is not the place for you. Because we are talking about commitment in doing something that is, you know, it's a challenging project to everyone. And we are looking for continuous improvement of our bank on an ongoing basis. So if you are happy with what you have right now and not having the mindset of going for continuous improvement, probably it's not the right place for you. I think another thing that is important is around curiosity. I think in virtual bank or any other startup company, we don't have definite answers to a lot of things. There is a lot of ambiguity. There is a lot of unknowns. And somehow we need to be able to find the answers together with our colleagues together. So there's a word that we always use within the bank is that we co-create, and we co-create something together and we find a solution together. So don't expect that there is always an answer in front of you and just follow the process and rules and get things done, because there's too much ambiguity at the moment. And we need to question ourselves from time to time whether or not we are delivering the best to our customers. So with this curiosity, with this passion, and with a mindset of continuous learning, I think you're 80% there. So when you consider any virtual banking opportunities, you know, not just us, but also the other virtual banks, you know, just be honest to yourself. Is this an environment that I love myself to be working in? And is this an environment that would motivate me in the longer run? And am I the kind of person who is open-minded and curious enough to grow the career here? So I think, you know, you've got to be very honest to yourself and do talk to more people and understand what you aim for after you graduate. So I actually got a couple of slides, but unfortunately I couldn't share this right now. I'll try it later. But I'll just give a pause here and see if there is any questions from you.
May I suggest we take a short break and then we will resume in 2 minutes for the Q&A session.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for students, after this short break, um, you are now invited to ask questions about any issues concerning your future development in the banking industry, or even joining the virtual banking industry. If you have questions, please type in the chat box, and we'll help you to ask the questions. Okay, the first question is, would there be, and I believe this is also a common question for non-finance graduates, uh, would non-finance graduates be able to get into the virtual banking industry, or even the banking industry? Ms. Law, please.
Okay, that's an easy question. The answer is a definite yes. Currently, I think my staff, probably less than half of them are from financial graduates. So we are pretty open in hiring people from, different backgrounds. So no worries what you're studying right now. I think it's more important of what your interest is, because everyone, when you graduate, you're a blank paper. So as long as you demonstrate that you are willing to learn, and you're a quick learner, which is very important, we are very open to hiring non-financial graduates.
Okay, thank you. Could you please, I think the students would be very interested to know, a lot of companies, not only banks, would say they would like to hire someone who is a quick learner. But then for the students, in terms of the preparation of the CV, or even for interview preparation, how can they show that they are a quick learner? Ms. Law, please.
That's a good question. So honestly, it's quite hard to just look at the CV, but there are a couple of things that I could pick up. One is, apart from academic, what other things you have done during your study? So are you curious enough to do different things, projects or different associations, things like that? Or even, outside of university curriculum, have you gone through any training, attended any kind of seminar courses, things like that? It would help me understand more about, what you do apart from your study life. And from there, I think, I think it would give us a good idea of who you are. But then, of course, I think when you go into an interview, then we would ask questions around, things that you might have not done before, and you might not have exposure before. But how would you approach that kind of questions? So for example, I think it's natural to ask some kind of marketing questions to a marketing graduate, but I might ask something around a very different area, for example, technology, cyber risk. And it doesn't matter that you don't know the answer. It's the way you demonstrate how you approach that problem, that question. And also, if you have read enough, or, learned different things from different sources, then we could tell. So my suggestion is, apart from your study, read more different things. It would help. It would widen your horizon. It would give you a more perspective of looking at things.
Thank you very much. Also, for many of our students, when they prepare for their job interviews, most of the time when they were asked to introduce themselves, they would say they are very good at communicating with others and they are very creative. And then for the preparation of this seemingly simple interview question of introducing yourself, could you please share some of your insights and experience to our students on what answers are actually the interviewer is looking for and what qualities? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So that's my personal opinion. First of all, don't script your answer because we would know. So, I know there is a lot to remember, and you might get nervous during the interview, but a scripted answer doesn't sound genuine. So be genuine when you introduce yourself. Focus on a few things than being, too elaborative on yourself. You can talk a little bit about your background, your strength, just one or two, your weaknesses, just one or two. And I think more importantly is that you give examples to substantiate what you just said. For example, if you tell me that you are a creative person, then I would be looking for one or two examples. So I think there is a common, it's quite common problem that some of the interviewees that I see is that when I asked, please introduce yourself, they give me like 10-minute kind of introduction. I think my personal opinion is that don't do that. Just focus on a few points and let the interviewer ask you for further elaboration. They would, there are areas that they would be more interested in and they would ask you to elaborate. Otherwise, if you keep, going on and on and on, then it demonstrates one of your weaknesses, which is that you are not really listening and you are not really interacting with the interviewer. So my suggestion is sweet and sharp answer, focus on a few points, and ask the interviewer which part they would like you to elaborate further. Then you can go on from there.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question would be, many graduates or even current students who aspire to join the banking or finance industry will spend a lot of time preparing for professional qualifications such as CFA, CPA, FRM. May I ask, are these qualifications necessary or do they automatically open doors? So in simple words, when I pass, say if I have passed CFA level 1, does that mean I do get selected automatically? Thank you.
Okay, so I think when we look at students' profile, we look at the full package. So, CFA could be a plus, but from my perspective, it's not a must. So I'd rather see people being more all-rounded. For example, if you have, you demonstrate that you academically you're fairly good, and activity-wise you got something outside of study, and with that, I think it's even more important that you have just one CFA on your CV. Of course, I think that demonstrates that you are a hard learner. You wanted one more qualifications on your profile, which is a good thing. But as an interviewer, I would look at the total package than just that. So if you have interest and spare time and the passion to learn more, I would encourage you to take those certification, but it doesn't mean that automatically you will be chosen. Like I said, we tend to look at your total profile.
Thank you. The next question would be, when students, especially applying for graduate jobs, when they see job openings in some companies like your company being a virtual bank, they will be immediately intimidated and thinking that, okay, I do not have much background and knowledge about information technology. So could you please help to explain whether an IT background is preferred, or or if the student does not have an IT background, what other skills can compensate? Thank you.
Okay, as a fresh graduate, I think, we don't expect a fresh graduate to know everything about technology, digital, or virtual banks. So we understand that. Even if you are not from that background, it's fine. You just need to show that at least you know something about that industry and something about, digital. So which is probably not something that you could learn from school in your curriculum, but something that you could learn from other sources. So IT background is not a must, but of course, for certain role, yes, then it would be a must. For example, if I'm hiring an engineer, then of course you need to know how to do coding. But there are also other generous roles within virtual bank. For example, product development, marketing, or even human resources. I don't expect every candidate come in with an IT background, but knowing a bit of, of the industry of digital would be a big plus.
Thank you. The next question is, our university has quite a few streams of engineering studies. For example, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and electrical engineering. May I ask, for students from these majors, whether they would be considered to be a viable candidate joining the virtual banking industry? If yes, then what roles would they be suitable for? Thank you.
Well, I think, like I said earlier, we are open to people, students with different backgrounds, coming from different, major, it doesn't really matter to us because we have a career path for everyone. So if you are not experienced in anything at all, you could still apply. But then just, prepare that you will need to learn really fast in the first 3 to 6 months. So I think for the couple of streams that you just mentioned, even for the roles in customer or product team, we would welcome that, because I will tell you why. Because we need people with diverse background to bring in different ideas from different angles. So like I said, we work in project teams. So the more diverse the team is, the higher possibility that we got great outcome, because again, we co-create what works for our customers. So for the streams that you just mentioned, I would suggest you go for something that interests yourself. So even if you are from engineering background, if you're interested in product/customer role, or even risk management compliance role, I would encourage you to apply for that. But of course, naturally, technology team, enter as a less experienced front-end, back-end engineer, I think it's totally fine as well, because we would have training to help you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe now we have Ms. Law has answered quite a number of questions. So Ms. Law, would like to conclude today's talk?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I think, first of all, thank you for having me to talk to you guys. I think the fact that you're in the call means that you are interested in virtual banking or you're interested in something new in the market, which is already a good sign. So I would encourage you to just attend more of these career talks so you could learn more from different people and just be confident to yourself, even if you don't have particular background. It doesn't matter. You can always try. But then one thing that I think even including myself needs to bear in mind is that we need to keep ourselves updated of what's going on out there. So read more, watch more, and I hope everyone good luck.
Okay, again, on behalf of the Careers and Placement section of the Students Affairs Office of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, we would like to thank Ms. Eliza Law again for spending time with us, introducing to us career opportunities in virtual banking industry, and also giving our students many valuable advice. And I would also like to thank FSDC for sponsoring and also co-organizing this career talk. Thank you very much for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you.